Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the CustomerSure Closed Loop podcast. Delighted that you can join us again wherever you're watching our podcast or listening to it. This is one of a series that we've done, and we're delighted with the engagement that you guys have shown getting involved with these. And just to introduce myself, my name's Darren Wake. I'm head of customer success at CustomerSure, if you've not seen me before. And really, really excited about this episode, guys, because we're actually joined by Katie Stabler, which I'm really excited to talk to Katie. So, just as a brief introduction to Katie, if you are unaware of what Katie does and what has done in the past. So, Katie is a customer experience consultant, speaker, an author, recently published the book CXism, The Philosophy of Customer Experience, which is a fantastic read, by the way. If you've not actually checked it out, do have check that book out. And as the founder of Cultivate, she helps organizations turn customer experience from a strategy into a movement. Now, Katie has a background in behavioral psychology and years of hands-on consulting experience across industries, from airports right the way through to animal hospitals. Now, Katie brings, and I've seen this in person, brings infectious energy, empathy, and straight talking insight to everything that she does. And she's passionate about people, driven by purpose, and essentially in a mission to make business more human. Which wouldn't that be a nice place, Katie? So Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for a lovely introduction.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to talk to you again. And yeah, I mean, what I wanted to talk about in this particular podcast was a bit more of a general topic about I guess two things really. One is about the state of CX and voice of the customer in the current landscape, where there's lots of different challenges and movements in the macro and micro environment, geopolitical environment, the kind of current challenges that businesses that you work with face, Katie, but also I guess the second part of that is I'm curious to learn about your approach and your best practice and what you've seen work and not work across various sectors. So kind of a broad-ranging topic, really, rather than a strict Q&A, if that's good.
Yeah, great. How long have we got? I think we could fill a day with all of
We could exactly, yeah, yes. I know we could because I have several hours actually. So we keep it to kind of 20-30 minutes out,
it.
which is a challenge, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, we are in really interesting times right now, aren't we? I think when it comes
Yeah.
to the topic of customer experience, because if you look over the last 20-ish years since the inauguration of NPS and since like the real, I suppose, kickstart of customer experience as a thing, as a discipline, the industry itself has just grown and grown and grown, hasn't it? It's been like just booming. You're constantly seeing new people coming up with different kind of CX titled roles as more and more people entering the industry. The CCXP accreditation just continues to grow and new accreditations pop up. Yet, despite that growth, despite more and more conversation about CX, unfortunately, year on year, the data just shows that actually customer satisfaction is not going in the direction we want it to go. So I think it is a really interesting time to be continuing to focus on CX. And oh gosh, if we talk about challenges, I think my list could go on. But I was having a little think kind of prior to the session, and quite honestly, I think there are three fundamental challenges that most companies still suffer with, and they're almost the rot, the core of where other things come from. And I think those challenges are disconnection. So just across organization, that disconnection between the customer experience strategy, the vision, the mission statement, whatever big artifacts are, and then the actual execution between departments, between responsibilities. CX as a buzzword still, that it's still just banded around. It's still very topical, but there's not much action behind it. And then the third one would be over reliance on metrics. So just that view of focusing on NPS or CSAT or customer effort score without meaningful thought out follow through or action on the back of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That's some interesting observations. I think a few things there. The over reliance on metrics and companies being so wedded to what's our NPS score and being too target driven and looking at, well, are we hitting those metrics and not really thinking through, well, how do our customers think and feel about us? That's the things that really matter. And then are we taking the steps to really improve how customers think and feel about us and how they getting the connection? Go back to the one things that you talk about a lot in your book about are they getting the connection with us as a brand, as an organization that we want, or are we just in this mindless pursuit of, yeah, our NPS has gone up 2 points, aren't we all great? Pat ourselves on the back. And I think when organizations make the metrics too much of a target, it can be gamed. You can start even consciously or subconsciously behaviors creep in to get the number they're looking for. And I've seen it with lots of companies where their metrics for CSAT, NPS may be tracking may look on the face of it healthy or tracking a certain direction, but business performance is actually going the other way.
Yeah.
And that's where CX can be discredited or, well, what the heck's going on here? Where's the value in it?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Somewhat, I don't know if you're aware of this analogy, but the watermelon effect. And I think you just
Uh,
described it perfectly. And I love this. I think I was in an ICT organization at the time when a colleague introduced me to this. And the watermelon effect is it's just the obvious where, green on the outside, you've got these well-performing KPIs, metrics that are all shining and showing the right numbers that you want. But then inside, red, because actually the experience does not match what the measures are saying. So I think it's a really nice little analogy to explain exactly what you just said. We're chasing numbers, everything looks beautiful and glorious on paper, but in reality, something is going wrong, which means there's a disconnect, which means we're
yeah.
not measuring the right things or we're measuring in the wrong way. And I'm certainly not against a metric. Don't get me wrong. I'm a CXer for heck's sake. I love a
Yes,
good
same,
metric.
same, same.
But they've got to be used in the right way. And
Yeah.
whether or not it's through organizations starting inaccurately, so bringing in metrics and just not knowing how to use them and therefore setting in bad habits, or whether or not bad habits creep in over time, that's the problem, unfortunately, with metrics if they're not well managed, is that they don't always breed the best behavior.
No, I agree with that. No, definitely they don't. One thing I think that's really shaping it, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are around this, is um I've been kind of been in the CX world for kind of 15, 16 years now, and one thing, even in that relatively short window, is how much customers have changed, how much customer expectations have changed. And I wonder if you've kind of seen it or have any examples where through new entrants to the market or disruptors into markets that we all use as day-to-day consumers, how they've kind of influenced customer expectations, if you like, and how and maybe a certain businesses and certain sectors struggling to catch up. I don't know.
Yeah, we have to talk about the whole world of digitization, don't we?
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
digital world has absolutely influenced customer expectations because we don't look at customer experience in isolation anymore. We don't think about our airport experience, our online shopping experience, our restaurant experience as single different things. To us, we just see customer experience across all of those different industries and we compare them, when we don't look at them industry agnostic. So it means that if an industry where we get a fantastic customer experience is something that we dip our toes into frequently, we expect that same level of great experience anywhere else we go. So I think across the board, just the fact that we are so much more open to different experiences very easily at our fingertips, we automatically and naturally compare them, even if they're not really comparable.
yeah.
So I think that's a big influencer in how our expectations change.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think that you hit the nail on the head where you say even if it's not comparable, it's still an expectation that you've gone through now, whether it's through, Amazon turning the delivery experience upside down or Uber transforming the taxi world, Airbnb. There's all these kind of disruptors and like you say, technology has been a big driver there, and also the new entrants, like even new entrants in the banking sector. It's for years and years it was just the big traditional banks, if you like, and then these new entrants came in, all the way going back quite a few years now to First Direct, albeit that's a part of HSBC. But what they did is they kind of re-engineered it, and now you've got all these different startup banks where they're not shackled by legacy systems, or they're not turning around oil tankers to make a decision, and they're just able to then move at pace. And I think that the all these experiences, even if because lots of organizations I work with, and I'm sure you do as well, Kitty, are B2B organizations, B2B relationships. But I always say, even though you're B2B, you're still dealing with people at the end of the day. Now, whether you're dealing with a marketing director, a customer experience director, a sales director, or a head of logistics, whoever your customer is in that business, they're still going to go home at the end of the day. They've still got, they still have a bank, they still have their utility bills, they still have insurance, so they still know what good and bad service looks like. So, not to keep them, even though, like I say, they're not comparable, but I think that today's customer is more astute at being able to spot what good and bad service looks like.
We're all customers, as you say. We all know
Mm,
what it looks like, and I think your point around the B2B piece, and actually we're humans, not necessarily businesses. I think that's a really astute point, because in the world of B2B, I've certainly seen it a lot. Not by obviously purpose or intention, but you absolutely, your customer does fall into looking like a contract, looking like an SLA. We do somewhere lose that sense of our customers just being people, also just needing to do a good job, also just needing to create a good customer and colleague experience.
yeah.
And everything in between on those pages, all those words, the contract, they just get in the way of delivering a good customer experience a lot of the time. So sometimes it's as simple as just stripping back from the contract and saying, right, look, we know what we need to do. Contract is going in the drawer. Let's talk about actually what we need to make sure you're getting the best service from us and we're delivering the best experience to you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, I think looking at all those challenges and the changing landscape and expectations and the over-reliance on metrics, to today's CX leader in an organization, you could put your head in the hands and think, oh my goodness, where the heck do I start? What are your, again, we could talk for hours about this, couldn't we? So it's just summarizing your book in a short amount of time, but what do you think are the key tips if a CX leader says, goodness me, I have a remit, improve customer experience, improve customer satisfaction, but more important, the board want to sales, reduce churn, increase retention, increase loyalty, increase word of mouth recommendation, because they're the KPIs the business really cares about, where there's a pound sign in front of it. Where does the CX leader start these days, Katie, do you think?
So I'm just going to say it: budget, allocate, budget. The amount of company, well, not just budget, but resource. The
Yeah.
amount of companies that I work with, massive companies who, I'm not saying they've got infinite amount of resource, but they are savvy in delegating resource where resource needs to be delegated. However, when it comes to the customer experience function, the department, whatever that looks like, it tends to be woefully under resourced. If you're lucky, there's somebody looking after customer experience, but quite often it can just be somebody's side of desk job. It can sit in marketing or ops. Quite often there isn't a dedicated resource. If there is a dedicated resource, there isn't much of a team. It might just be one person, a couple of analysts, perhaps, if they're lucky, or split roles. So you see that for something that is such an umbrella resource across your whole organization, customer experience doesn't sit in isolation, or it shouldn't. It impacts every area of your business. To have it so minimally resourced, I think, is first and foremost something that as an organization you really need to honestly view yourself and think, is this right? If we actually want to make meaningful change, if we want to design and manage our experience truly around the customer and the insight, is it resourced enough? So that's where I would start, which is a tricky one. I know it's a tricky conversation for a lot of people. I think that also connects the conversation between the amount that you're going to invest into the world of customer experience and what your return on investment looks like. Because again, it's always a conversation that comes up. And I think that organizations need to flip this on its head slightly, because unlike some things where you are going to get an immediate and obvious and directly correlated return on investment, in the world of customer experience, while yes, you can definitively prove ROI, sometimes, as cliched as it sounds, it is a bit of a longer term gain. You're not
Yeah.
going to see those improvements straight away. They are going to be longer term effects. So I think organizations need to be mindful of that too.
Mhm.
Um, go.
No, no, I think it's a really good point actually about budget and allocation and resources and taking it seriously. And not going to name names here, but I'm sure you've seen or worked with organisations in the past that say they're cheesy line, isn't it? We're customer centric. We put the customer at the heart of the business. We're really, believe in delivering consistently great experiences for our customers because we understand the importance that has on the business bottom line and doing the right thing by customers. But saying it and walking the walk are two different things actually. And I think the resources thing strays into the area of kind of culture, doesn't it? And the culture of the organization, and whether that culture really believes in customer experience as a discipline, or they're just kind of ticking a box and saying, yes, we'll have a person there to, I don't know, just send out a survey, get a score, and that's about it, really. So,
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is quick and really worth it. Are you tired of manual processes and never getting to what really matters, which is actually taking action from customer feedback? Well, I think you'll find this really useful. CustomerSure's new AI-powered text analytics feature, where comments are automatically tagged, sentiment applied, and you get clear actions of where to prioritize your efforts. Now, click the link in the comments to get more information and really check it out. Now, let's get back to the video.
it's a very difficult one, but yeah, that cultural bit. Where do you begin to, I guess, try to change that if
You've
possible?
just sent this like warmth oozing through me. I love that you've brought culture in. It's just you've totally hit the nail on the head. It's so important. And
Yeah.
actually, one of the things I try to do with every company that I work with, right at the very beginning, is actually to your point. Do people know what customer experience is? Are they actually bought into it? Do they understand the impact of it on the business?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, when we talk about customer experience, it's very, you know, intangible. It's just a word. We all know what customers are. We all know experiences. We all understand what it looks and feels like. But actually, what is the psychology of customer
Mm,
experience? What is the neurology of customer experience? How actually does our service design, our product design, our experience design, how does it actually impact our customers? And what does that do to them to then create perception, customer experience, yada, yada, yada? And I try to get my clients to engage in organization wide training on that very matter right at the beginning. And normally, clients are up for it. It's a really interesting workshop. But what it does is it just gets people completely aligned with what customer experience is, deeper than just that tagline of CX, what it means for the business, and how every single department does impact ultimately that end experience. And that's part of that culture shift. That's part of getting that buy-in, because you can't get buy-in if people don't truly understand what it is and what they can do about it. So I do think that cultural thing is so incredibly important, and it does kind of come back to the resourcing. But ultimately, if everybody is accountable for their part in CX, everyone's got a responsibility, that should help resourcing moving forward. And the kind of holy grail ideal in a very, very, very distant future, I can't see it happening anytime soon, but is that actually customer experience stops being a thing again, because it is just part of the DNA of every company.
Well,
That's
yeah, it's such I've never thought of it that way, but that is such an interesting point that you could say actually when sometimes it's so siloed and it's just a department doing their thing and it doesn't really permeate, and that the CX team might share results and best practice or priorities for improvement with, whether it be, a contact center team, a delivery team, account management, the different elements of the business that are at the coalface dealing with customers, but then they go back in their box again. And I think where it works best is that there's no silos whatsoever, and there's just a constant stream of information both ways about what
Yes.
customers are saying and what actions people need to take. And I think where I've seen the cultural challenges being overcome is almost to CX leaders saying, look, you've got to take it back to the bottom and almost saying, dumbing it totally down about why this really matters and getting away from the metrics if you can and saying why this really makes a difference to our customers and how this will benefit the business and reputation and brand trust. They all come into play as well. And the long-term game is key as well. It's not like running a marketing campaign and spending X on some promotion or advertising and then quickly working out, well, what was the return on that? Then this is such more of a longer term aspirational goal, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I completely agree about the going back to foundations. I mean, if you think as a customer yourself, what is it that you want? You just want an easy, seamless experience just to get at least what you expect, right? You're not hoping for lots of sparkles and tinsels and all of these kind of wow magic moments. They're nice, don't get me wrong, but ultimately you just want to go in, achieve your success, whatever that is, and get out happily, easily, comfortably in a way that suits you most. And that's where companies, I think, are unfortunately struggling at the moment, because when there's so much focus on the world of AI, which again, fantastic advancements, there's lots of amazing things that can really influence the world of customer experience. But at the moment, I think strategically, organizations are just not applying them correctly. And actually, exactly to your point, what a lot of companies need to do is just go back to basics, figure out exactly what the foundational customer experience looks like, make sure you are nailing that, and then build upon it. We talk about banks again, but I had an experience with a bank recently. I was on the phone for 2 hours, 4 different departments.
Nightmare.
It was terrible. It was the age-old story of every time I spoke to a new person, having to explain everything again. The same issue for 4 people. They all gave me different answers. The system, the processes in the background, the system, the technology, all of that was the issue. It wasn't the people. People were just trying to help, but they were hindered by faulty knowledge systems, giving them the wrong answers, bad processes where we had to kind of do DPA every time. There was so much, again, foundationally wrong with that experience. No level of AI, I don't believe, is going to fix that anytime soon. They just need to go back to the basics.
No, it's yeah. Oh goodness me, I feel for you being on the phone for 2 hours, being transferred around lots of
And the
people.
way they ended with the resolution was they told me I needed to make a complaint to get it fixed. I didn't want to make a complaint.
Yeah.
They forced a complaint. It was absolutely bizarre. But
Yeah, I think the people that work in these service environments at the coalface, if you kind of speak to them off the record, that what they do say is, this is driving me nuts because they can actually, by and large, if you work in service in any industry, the people there do genuinely want to help. They might feel like they're getting hit over over the head with a hammer every day because the systems or the processes are kind of failing them, but they feel like they want to solve people's problems, but they just either systems or processes by one hand behind their back, or they're just not empowered to do so. So I think what was interesting, that's the line that struck me in your book and what you said about making businesses more human is kind of a mission of almost detangling that, isn't it? And yes, digitalization and yes, AI will help with some of that, but that can still sit alongside making things more human to have a better outcome for the customer, can't it? So
totally. And I think we do want that, don't we? As customers, I mean, yes, we want the streamlined, perfect solutions, but ultimately, the whole digitalization piece, we don't want to feel disconnected. We do want to feel like the company cares, values, and appreciates us. And moving forward, there's a real interesting topic, I think, of conversation around sentiment and actually how important. A lot of companies don't realize how important sentiment is to an experience, because sentiment is actually what gives us memories. It's what makes us able to remember a company, and therefore that creates our version of customer experience. Without that sentiment, companies are all going to fade into the grey and not become memorable. And then what's, for use of a cliched word, an overused word, what's the differentiator? What will decide between which company we go to? So I think ultimately the ones who still feel human and have that human touch are going to be the ones that prevail.
Yeah, that's it. I often say this is a well-used line that I don't know who came up with it, but it's used a lot, which is customers will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel, or words to that effect.
Hiya, Angela.
There you go. There, yeah. So it's exactly that. That okay, and I totally get that some organisations, it's more emotional, it's more a spike of joy, it's something which is a greater bit of fun, whether that's booking a holiday or having a holiday or buying a luxury purchase or going to a shop to get a new sofa. There's certain transactions or certain organisations we deal with it either in the business life or our life as consumers that are definitely more use offer more sexy, more fun. And there's others where you're dealing with your pension provider or your insurance company. That's not really that fun. You're doing it because you just want to get the outcome you're looking for, and therefore it needs to be easy. It needs to be got like your bank example is a good one, Kate. You just want your issue sorted. You want it easy, quick, professional, and confidence that it's being sorted. You'd rather not be on the phone calling your bank, but needs must. So I totally get that some organisations can make their experiences to start with are genuinely a bit more fun, if you like, than others. But there's still a place for making them more human, more enjoyable if that's a word, more or less painful, actually, less friction. And that's why I think the customer effort piece is actually useful metric to look at. Of all the metrics, I think that's probably the one that's most value.
Oh yeah, I absolutely hands down recommend every one of my clients effort score because I can't remember actually. There was some data not so long ago that actually showed that over and above satisfaction, that was the indicator of loyalty because how easy we make it definitely determines how likely someone is going to come back. And it's really interesting you talk about the sentiment piece on some of the kind of less sexy companies. There are definitely some organisations which lean into emotion more than others, not even on purpose. So, one of the companies I'm working with at the moment is a veterinary organisation. They are, of course, a very emotionally charged business because it's our pets. We love them. No matter what it is that we're doing surrounding them, we are emotionally charged around them, and therefore the experience is emotionally charged.
Yeah.
And I worked with a plumbing company, and we were talking about sentiment and emotion, and somebody rightly provoked conversation. What? How plumbing isn't sexy, like taps, shower heads. Like, how are we supposed to create emotion around this? And I showed them some customer feedback of theirs, which was, to be honest, quite a hard find because actually their feedback was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But I found this one piece, and the customer, it was a long paragraph on Trustpilot, and the customer was very upset. And you could read the outrage in this feedback. And I was like, there's the emotion.
Yeah.
It's emotion in the service. For whatever reason here, something has gone wrong, and that customer is so intensely emotionally charged, so much so they're willing to take time out of the day to go on and leave you feedback. So if you ever question, no matter what industry you are you connected emotionally to your customer? The answer is always yes, because even from a service provision, we have so much power in our experience to design to create the right or wrong sentiment, and therefore the right or wrong ultimate perception of customer experience.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. It's made me think about that emotion side, where organizations where it's more of an emotional purchase or product or connection. Yes, that those emotions are more likely to be positive, whereas opposed to where if it's more functional, the emotions that people express, if anything, it's less likely to be delight, but it's more likely to be a negative emotion, but they are still there. And it's a good point that people where they've had a really bad experience and going back to the effort being. It's very hard, or it was difficult to order something, return something, solve a complaint, solve an issue, like your banking example. That's where individuals get stressed, angry, despondent, really cheesed off. And this is where I've worked with a number of organizations recently where one eye is always on their public facing reviews, whether it be Google reviews, Trustpilot, those kind of publicly available review scores and so on, because they're your kind of shop window, you know. And if people are going onto these review sites and see 1 stars and people having that rant, then obviously not good that customers had a rubbish experience, but secondly, it's kind of in the public domain, and then people think actually in recent reviews, a few people have had problems here. I might think twice about using them. Shall I look at an alternative company? So I always say, look, to tip people over, by and large, I found this, but to tip people over into leaving negative reviews and writing chapter and verse on Trustpilot or somewhere, that they're in a pretty like cheesed off place. And you read some of them across different businesses and industries, and you can feel like that. What we said there, the emotion of I'm really hacked off with how you've dealt with me here, and they're cheesed off that the company hasn't done anything about it. They've not taken the action. But then people think, right, I'm going to put this out there on social media or reviews to kind of hit you where it hurts a little bit, really. And I always say to companies, look, that's kind of people do that generally as a bit of a last resort. There's so many.
Hey, sorry for interrupting the video, but I'll be quick. Now, is your VOC program really making an impact, or are hidden gaps really holding you back? Take our free VOC maturity assessment to get instant insights and actions to improve your VOC program. It only takes 5 minutes and you'll be closer to take your VOC program to the next level. Click the first comment to find out more. Now, let's get back to the video.
Opportunities to get in and nip it in the bud before it escalates. You can't put out all those fires, but if you cut them down 20-30%, what a difference that would make to your review scores if they're really precious to you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know most people just walk. They don't leave complaints. Like you say, they don't leave feedback. They just leave.
Yeah.
And then first, really, because then we don't know why they've left. We don't understand what's been so bad in the experience. And I mean, that is one of the amazing advantages of the AI evolution, is that we just have so much more ability to understand our customer experience now without necessarily having to ask customers. I always think there is going to be a time and a place to ask, but obviously we can track their steps through how they use our platforms. We can collect sentiment analysis. We can go through all that conversational analytics. So there's every single opportunity available for us now to understand the impact our customer experience has on our customers. But I guess that's another thing around what leaders should be doing is actually, are you implementing that technology? If you are you actually using that insight? And you said it earlier about breaking down silos. I think it was, I can't remember which company, but they brought out some data recently that only 13% of B2B customers, B2B organizations use all of their customer data holistically, as opposed to just looking at it department by department by department. Only 13%. So, that's a massive amount of companies that are potentially making erroneous decisions on very siloed views by looking at data in a very siloed way.
Yeah, no, it's a bit sad, isn't it? Really, where that data is available, and what I say to companies is the voice of the customer data exists in so many forms. Yes, you need a VOC program, and you need a VOC platform like CustomerSure to fuel that, and you need to get those pieces of feedback in there. And yes, metrics obviously do play a part in that. But VOC data is so much more than that. Talk about review site, talk about complaints data, anecdotal feedback from customer service teams. You can speak to staff members in an organization and just give them an open question. What do customers really think, or where are the pain points that customers have when you're dealing with them? Where do you think we could improve? And speaking to people internally as well, they'll tell you, they'll say to you, like your example of the bank there, if you were to take a bunch of people that you'd spoke, like in the contact center, who'd spoke to people like you every day, and you said to them, where are the issues? What would help you? You'd probably be hard to shut them up. I'm sure they'd have lots of things to say. So use your own people to get that result, that insight as well.
Yeah, totally. And that, you're right. That's absolute gold dust, especially frontline when they're seeing it and feeling it and hearing it. But I think the thing is with the voice of the customer is we can and we do make so many assumptions as an organization around what we think the customer experience is. And we have to know what the customer experience is. We can't assume, we can't think, because there's so many biases that creep in naturally. Actually, the VOC piece takes away that assumption. So we can't rely on other data telling us when actually sometimes we absolutely need horse of mouth, as it were.
No, totally. So we could chat all day about this and go into detail. And it would be good to actually have you back, Katie, and go into some of these areas in a bit more detail, because the stacks there, and I think if we get some kind of questions from our audience and listeners, it would be good to do maybe a bit of a Q&A session with you as well at some point. But I guess to kind of um, give us some hope, because there's lots, we talked a lot there about some of the broad challenges and a bit of the state of the nation, if you like. Where are in your experience, the glimmers of hope? Where's the exciting stuff? Where are you working with particular organizations or things that you've seen and thinking, yes, that's the future. We need more of that, less of this. What I know it's a kind of very broad question, but
what I'm really valuing at the moment is a few organizations that I'm working with that are taking that dual pronged approach. So the whole top down and bottom up, and doing it parallel. So it's not a phased approach. It's not right, let's start at the bottom and then we'll get to the top, or vice versa. Doing it both together. So one organization, we're working with the leadership team just to really refine the strategy. There's a CX strategy in place already, but we're just going over it again. Is it right? Is it up to date? Are there things that we haven't considered? And then from the bottom line, that CX kind of foundational training that I mentioned earlier, we're starting there, getting everybody on the same page. And then we're kind of going to meet in the middle. So once we have this strategy corrected, and once we have this baseline understanding of customer experience foundation, then we're going to start to bring together the tactical initiatives.
Yeah.
And I think an approach like that, and it's a big organization. So I think organization wide, it's the cultural piece. They're demonstrating commitment at all levels. They want complete clarity and alignment across all levels, so everyone is singing off the same hymn sheet, as it were. And I think it doesn't matter what industry you work in, that type of approach works. And then also the other thing I just can't seem to get away from at the moment is smaller companies just having the ability to really be customer centric. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. And this actually isn't a company that I'm working with. It's just somebody that's kind of blown my mind recently with a few different things. And I say blow my mind, I mean, I'm talking about the most simple of experiences, but because really good experiences are so far and few in between, that when they happen, they do blow my mind.
I know.
This one company, it's a cinema. It's a small independent cinema. It just so happened that I bought an extra ticket. The person couldn't come. I got in touch with them, mentioned that, and they've credited my account. Now, it's a tiny thing, right? But if that was a big company, I think you'd have just lost that ticket. You've bought an extra ticket. Tough. You've lost it. So they credited the account. I wanted to use it. I wasn't sure how to use the credit, so I popped them an email. Literally within an hour, email back explaining exactly how I use the credit. Just super, super simple. But I guess my point is with smaller companies, they have that ability to make their own decisions. They're a little bit more empowered. They're a little bit more fluid, to work quickly and agile. They can focus on the customer, because really the customer is their bread and butter. And I'm seeing, because I'm working with a lot of kind of pre-seed companies who are going through that early growth stage, I'm seeing the magic that you can continue to flow that customer experience focus through is when you start to scale, things get a bit trickier, and then it comes back to the point around investment. But I think if companies can almost reset and go back to the magic of a startup mentality, you could make some amazing gains from that kind of mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point. I really do, because I always think about when I work with people, I say, well, forget about your company you work for, forget about your job for a second, but where do you really get good service, great customer experience, and just have a conversation around that. And the example I use, I mentioned it the other day to someone actually, is the hairdresser I go to. Okay, I haven't got loads of hair, but I go to the barber I go to, and it's the same barber I've used for years. And there's cheaper barbers, but I go to this guy because we have a bit of banter. We talk about, football, sport, what we're up to, and it's quite a nice experience, and okay, if we talk about good customer experience, I get the outcome I'm looking for, which is a haircut. Happy with my haircut, but come out thinking, oh, it was a nice chat with John, and I had a good bit of banter there. And like you say, when companies scale, they kind of lose some of that. So generally, you're right. What you say is when we think about the best experiences we have working with companies, organizations, most it tends to be things that are fairly small, whether it's the local barber, the local coffee shop, the local independent cinema is a great example, the local independent, electrical store. And when they kind of grow, they kind of lose a bit of that, sadly. And I know some of that's about empowerment, and when you're in the barbers, you're dealing with a guy who owns a business. But if you can keep that ethos and like what you said there, keep that magic sauce throughout as you grow, then that's kind of the key, really. Just think, almost treat every staff member as if they're running their own tiny small business, if you like. That's a way to keep it real.
Totally. And I don't think it's impossible either. I just
No.
think you need to, again, just make sure you've got those foundations in place. You're resourced sufficiently, you've got the right focus, the right conversations are happening, and keep that customer experience focus alive.
Yeah, yeah. No, fantastic. Well, we could talk a lot more, and I'm sure we will again, because it'd be good to revisit some of these more topics. Because looking at your book, it'd be good to go into some of the individual chapters in a bit more detail, actually,
Yes.
Kate. But leaves me to say, we could talk for a lot longer, but thank you very much, Katie, for joining us on the CustomerSure Closed Loop podcast. It's been great fun, and thank you for joining it.
Thank you. Total pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Katie. And thank you, everyone who's watching and listening, wherever you are consuming this. Thanks again for your continued contribution, whether if you can leave comments, suggestions, questions for myself, or questions for Katie, anything we've talked about, or points that you agree or disagree with, please do get involved, and we'll ensure we'll cover them on a future podcast. But Katie, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you again.
Thanks, Darren. Really appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye. Cool. Thanks, Katie.
You're welcome.
Is that all right?
That was good.
So it was a bit kind of broad brush, but I just kind of wanted to keep it quite high level. And goodness me, you made some great points. Love it, love it, love it. And we could talk. You could. Well, I'm sure you've done it. You could do 2-day workshops on all this stuff, couldn't you? Going into each individual bit. So it's kind of real high level stuff, but it's value, I think. So
good. I think it flowed really nicely. Good conversation.
thanks, Katie. Yeah, likewise. Yeah. So no, lovely. So we'll top and tail that, and then I'll keep in touch when things are ready to go out and stuff. And we'll obviously copy you in and encourage people to connect with you on LinkedIn and give you a follow and all that good stuff as well. I mean, we're at a point now, actually, we've talked about, as we're growing, about doing some customer events and stuff like that. And it'd be good to talk to you about that. Actually, in-person events, because the digital stuff's great, but in-person is way better. I hope you agree. Yeah.
So agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please do. Let's definitely. Happy to continue to engage in any way, and definitely if it's in person, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm thinking is just getting together, just because our clients, we've worked. What's good about this business, but we've got a great platform. We're good with it. We genuinely are good with our clients. Touch wood. We have extremely high client retention, and they, compared with our more illustrious, more well-known, more expensive competitors of the world, Qualtrics, Medallia, and Moment, all those guys. What we hear is that we deliver a lot better service. And again, it goes back to that point you made about scale. Actually, it's because we genuinely care a lot more, I think. But anyway, well, one thing our clients are talking about is a client event, like a client conference where they can get together and network. And we're just giving some thought about how we can make that happen, like get a venue. But what would be good is getting someone like yourself to, get involved in that in some way, whether it's delivering a session or hosting a kind of a chat, fireside chat, or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, cool. Well, I do lots of different kind of hosting and what have you, so more than happy to get involved.
Yeah, and obviously wouldn't expect you to do that for free either. Would pay you for it, obviously, just to be upfront with you. So so anyway, I'll let you get on with your day, Katie. But it's been great to chat, and thanks again for getting involved in this.
Always welcome.
Yeah, and have a great time in South Africa for client stuff and your holiday whenever you go. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Take care.
Cool. See you later.
Bye,
Be safe.
Katie. Bye.